In our last episode, Jacob Frank stood at a precipice, excommunicated by the rabbis, condemned as a heretic, yet protected by the very Catholic authorities he observed. He had played his hand masterfully, turning the religious disputations into a stage for his messianic claims and a platform to dismantle rabbinic authority. But now, having burned his bridges with the Jewish world, a new, more profound step was required. A step that would irreversibly redefine his movement. In an act of audacious defiance, Jacob Frank chose to abandon the faith of his ancestors, not for traditional salvation, but for survival. Or was it something more? Was this a genuine spiritual journey, or the ultimate calculated gamble in his relentless pursuit of power and redemption? For Frank and his followers, excommunication by the Jewish rabbin was not merely a spiritual decree. It carried severe social and often legal consequences in 18th century Eastern Europe. They were now outcasts, vulnerable to both Jewish communal justice and, more dangerously, the whims of local authorities. Conversion to the dominant religion, Catholicism in Poland, offered a radical solution. It provided immediate protection from the punitive measures of the Jewish community, effectively placing them under the powerful aegis of the Church and the Polish state. This wasn't about heartfelt theological belief for many. It was a pragmatic, strategic shift, a shield against persecution, and a path to social acceptance, however tenuous, within the broader society. To understand the depths of Frank's pragmatism, we must look further back. Long before the public spectacle in Louvre, while residing in Turkey, Frank had already undergone a less known but equally significant conversion to Islam. For about a decade, he adopted the outward appearance of a Muslim, even taking the name Osman Baba, seemingly embracing the dominant faith of the Ottoman Empire. This earlier act of apostasy, driven by the desire to continue his messianic activities and avoid persecution from Turkish Jewish authorities, established a clear pattern. Frank was willing to publicly shed any religious identity if it served his larger, hidden purpose. For him, external religious identity was a fluid garment to be worn or discarded as dictated by strategic necessity. And so, the stage was set for the most dramatic public display of Frankist apostasy. In September 1759, in the Grand Cathedral of Louvre, Jacob Frank, alongside many of his devoted followers, underwent mass baptism into the Roman Catholic Church. This was no quiet, private affair. It was a spectacle designed to legitimize their break from Judaism and secure their new status. Frank himself was baptized by none other than the Polish primate, Władysław Lubiański, the highest ecclesiastical authority in the land. He received the name Jakub Franciszek, a Christian identity that now permanently marked his severance from his Jewish origins. Through thousands of his followers, swayed by his messianic claims, the pressure of communal excommunication, and the promise of protection, followed suit in subsequent months, embarking on this new, uncertain path. But for Frank and his most devoted adherents, this conversion was far more than a mere pragmatic shift. It was understood as a profound mystical act, a fulfillment of Frank's prometry. Following in the footsteps of Sabbatai Zevi, who had converted to Islam, Frank taught that this outward conversion, this descent into the abyss of another religion, was not a betrayal, but a necessary step towards ultimate redemption. It was a cosmic act of self-abasement, a deliberate act of holy sin, designed to break the shells of impurity, shatter the old order, and hasten the coming of the Messianic age. By immersing themselves in the alien faith, they believed they were performing a secret, world-transforming mission, hidden from the eyes of the uninitiated. While Frank portrayed this as a mystical journey, for many ordinary followers, the reality was fraught with immense personal trauma and societal pressure. Torn between centuries of Jewish identity and tersos, the demands of their charismatic leader, conversion was often a painful necessity. It forced them to navigate a treacherous double life, outwardly conforming to Catholic rituals while secretly maintaining their Frankist beliefs. This gave rise to Crypto-Frankism, a hidden world where Jewish customs were reinterpreted through a Frankist lens, practiced in secret, and often imbued with esoteric significance. The psychological toll of this forced duality, the severing of ties with family and tradition, was immense, leaving a complex legacy for generations. Jacob Frank had completed his grand deception. He had secured his freedom and the protection of the church, but at what cost to his followers and his own soul? With a new identity and a growing secretive cadre of adherents, Frank was now poised to expand his influence far beyond the borders of Poland. His next moves would prove even more unpredictable, transforming him from a provincial messiah into a figure who would navigate and even attempt to manipulate the highest circles of European power and nobility.